In April, I'll be running my absolute dream race, the London Marathon. It'll be my first marathon here in the UK, and I couldn't be more excited. I am running for a small charity called Pancreatic Cancer Action in memory of my dad, who I lost in 2018 to the disease. If you'd be interested in sponsoring me, there is a QR code on screen now, as well as a link in the description of the video. Any support would be gratefully appreciated. But now onto the topic for this video, which training plan I'm going to follow for London. There is a lot of choice out there, but in this video, I'm going to focus on 2 training apps. Runner, the app I've used to train me for 4 out of my 5 marathons to date, and COOPAH, the official training app for the TCS London Marathon, which to date, I've never used. I already have access to Runner, but through my charity place, I also have access to COOPAH, so it seemed like a good opportunity to chat through the 2 options. In this video, I'm going to talk about app cost, setting up marathon plans in both apps, key similarities and differences between Runner and COOPAH, and finally, which app I have decided to use for my London Marathon training. This video isn't going to have a deep dive into the individual runs programmed by the apps, but if you want to follow along with my week-to-week training for London, remember to like this video, and more importantly, subscribe to my channel. Let's start with how much these apps cost here in the UK. COOPAH is the cheaper option of the 2, costing £14.99 a month or £79.99 for an annual plan. Runner costs £15.99 on a month-to-month subscription or £99.99 for an annual plan. You can get a joint subscription to Runner and Strava for £119.99. This is only available through Strava, and it's also only available as a single annual payment. Both apps offer a 1-week free trial, but you'll regularly find offers and codes that extend this to a couple of weeks. To keep this video focused, I'm only really going to compare these 2 apps in terms of setting up marathon plans, but both offer plans from the 5K up to the marathon distance. COOPAH stops at the marathon distance, whereas Runner has offerings including ultramarathons too. The experience setting up a marathon plan across both apps have a lot of similarities, but also a few key differences. I'll start with my COOPAH setup. This video will be chaptered, so feel free to skip ahead if you don't want the deep dive. COOPAH starts by asking me to find my race, so I look for the London Marathon, and being one of the sponsors, unsurprisingly, it's there. Then it asks if I have run a marathon before, giving me 3 options: yes, no, or no, but I have run a half. If I say yes, it asks me for my most recent marathon time. If I say no, but I have run a half, it asks me for that most recent time. I have run a marathon before, so I click that and put in my Valencia Marathon 2025 time of 3 hours, 56 minutes and 16 seconds. COOPAH then asks me for a target time. For London, I'd like to aim for 3 hours, 45 minutes. Then it asks a bit about my running. As I ran a full marathon just over a month ago, I've roughly estimated that I could run 28k at the moment without stopping. I'd like to run 4 times a week, and I don't want any strength and conditioning sessions per week because I'm going to be looking after that myself, but it is good to know that is available if needed. Next, it asks me when I want my longest run to be. That's typically a Sunday, and my hardest run, likely an interval or a tempo session, so I'm going to provisionally go with a Tuesday for that. Next, COOPAH doesn't give loads of flexibility around a start date. It basically says, here is your date. Do you want to start sooner? I couldn't see an option for saying, actually, I want to start later, which to me seemed a little bit odd. So I would recommend setting up a plan possibly the day before you intend to start your plan if you are going to use COOPAH. Next, it asks me to review my volume. Here you have 2 options, either starting gradually or starting at a higher volume. Given I am not starting from scratch, coming off the back of the Valencia Marathon and also a week of running in Lanzarote, I am going to take the higher volume option, and that pushes my opening week's volume from 28k to around 37k. Looking at the graph, this gives me more volume in weeks 1 to 5 than with the lower volume option, but then looking at the graph, they seem to intersect. Both options look like they peak in week 13 of 16 with a 70k training week. Next, I'm asked how I want to be coached. I assume this means just the tone of the coaching text in my plan, rather than making any fundamental changes to my actual training plan. Here I'm going to go with demanding. Then it builds my plan. It gives me the option to amend my target event time. It also gives me an option to adjust my easy run pace, which I am going to adjust to 5 minutes 50 per kilometre. It also gives me the option to add in a B race. I don't have any planned at the moment, but I'm sure one will come along soon enough. Usefully, it tells me its rules about B races, about when they can be. For example, you have to have 10 days between B races, and it has to be at least a week before the end of your plan. Right, we'll come back to COOPAH and its plan shortly, but first I want to run through the setup of a runner marathon plan. Runner starts in a similar way, asking me to choose a race, so I choose the London Marathon. Next, it asks me to rate my running ability. As I've done quite a few structured training plans, mainly through Runner, and I regularly run at least half marathon distance or further, I'm going to select Elite. Then it's on to putting a current estimate of my marathon time. Like I did with COOPAH, I'm going to put my Valencia marathon time of 3 hours, 56 minutes and 16 seconds. I want to train 4 days a week. I can run most days, except I keep 1 day free for my Olympic weightlifting classes. And as with COOPAH, I want my long run day to be Sunday. Runner has a few options for when I plan to start. I want to start a 16-week plan on the 5th of January. Next comes training preferences. After my dialed back training for Valencia, I'm ready to increase my training volume, so I'm going to make it progressive and my difficulty balanced. I'm putting my longest run in at 28k, like I did with COOPAH, and similarly, based on my recent running week in Lanzarote, I'm going to set my current weekly mileage to 55k, and then that's it. It builds my plan. So comparing the experience with both apps, COOPAH gives me a bit more flexibility with setting a goal time. I also liked that I could adjust my easy pace, neither of which you appear to be able to do on Runner. However, Runner gives me a lot more flexibility on my training preferences. COOPAH simply has standard or higher volume options. Runner gives me 3 options for volume and 3 for difficulty. It then also gives me more customization options within both the volume and difficulty preferences. Runner didn't ask me about strength training in the plan setup like COOPAH did, but once the plan is set up in the manage plan settings, Runner then allows you to not only add strength, but also yoga, Pilates, and stretch and stability. With COOPAH, it just seems to be strength. Both apps allow you to add B races to your plan that will adapt your pre and post training around that B race. Comparing the two, I found COOPAH was a bit more upfront with when you can add B races to your plan. Runner gives recommendations, but not explicit advice. Sometimes you get to the add race and it will say you can't because some of its built-in rules that it doesn't explicitly specify. Runner also has options if you go on holiday or if you're feeling under the weather, which will lighten your plan during those times. I couldn't see any options like this on COOPAH. So in setting up my plans, I tried to make them as like for like as possible. So how do they compare? Well, Runner has me running 968.5 kilometers over the length of my plan, with COOPAH at 877 kilometers, just over 90 kilometers less than the Runner plan. This despite higher volume selected on the COOPAH plan and not selecting Elite Plus on the Runner plan for my running ability. Runner has my highest volume weeks in both weeks 10 and 11, both 72 kilometer weeks, whereas COOPAH has me maxing out in week 10 with 68 kilometers. My longest run with Runner is scheduled to be 34k in week 11, with COOPAH having me plan to go slightly longer, 35k in week 13. Interestingly, despite the lower overall volume, COOPAH has me running 421.2 kilometers across all of my long runs, including the marathon itself. Runner has me doing 20 kilometers less, with 401.3 across all those long runs, once again including the marathon. Runner has me doing 4 different types of runs, being easy, tempo, interval, and long runs. COOPAH covers all the same runs as Runner, but also adds in steady runs as a 5th run type. Now comes what app I'm going to choose for my London Marathon training. Had I been coming into this experience having never used either app, On the basis of the extra features on offer that I've discussed in this video, I would probably be choosing Runner over COOPAH. However, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I've used Runner for 4 marathons to date, and being honest, the 3 that I've treated as A races, Paris and Chicago in 2024 and Valencia in 2025, I feel like I've plateaued a bit with my times, being 3:57:40 in Paris, 3:56:39 in Chicago, and 3:56:16 most recently in Valencia. So I've opted to go with COOPAH. Despite it not being as feature rich as Runner, I think it gives me all the features I'm personally looking for at the moment for my London plan. I'm keen to see if the end result has me taking bigger chunks out of my marathon time than the Runner plans did. The 2 features that clinched it for me was the ability to tell the app my target time for London, as well as being able to modify my easy run pace. I was also keen to see if using a different app has some different types of training runs than the ones I've gotten used to with Runner over the past couple of years. So like and subscribe if you want to follow along with my training journey to London. If you would like to sponsor my efforts for pancreatic cancer action, scan the QR code or go to the link in the description. Any support would be massively appreciated. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. See ya.